Hello people, it's Humanity and Return to Monksaw. So today we'll be going to do a Gyroudus documentary, and I've never really done anything like this before, so I'm probably gonna be a bit weird or something. But so we're gonna start. This was just a little intro, so let's start. The guy who just wakes up and it turns his head to see nothing. It suspected something was nearby, but no, it wasn't. It decides to run off. Gyroudus do not stay in a location for one day. It sees a water hole up ahead. There must be a lot of creatures up here. If it sees another of its kind being chased by another of its kinds, it decides to try rescue the baby. But the adult Gyroudus seems to be the mother or that father of the Gyroudus. Decides to walk off. Maybe it could become pack mates with this Gyroudus. Who knows? It sees even more Gyroudus and animals. And it also sees a remora coming up ahead. And the remora seems to be fighting. The Gyroudus decides to assist the remora and kills her. It failed to kill it since it did not grab onto it, and the Alice easily escaped. It then sees a Lachamasauron up ahead. It wants to try hunt it. Goes in for a bite. Since the Lachamasauron is having an amazing amount of bleed, this will keep it at bay for quite a while. But then it starts to get wrecked and decides to leave. Hopefully, the Lachamasauron is not as fast as the Gyroudus, or else it might be dead meat for sure. It decides to try communicate with the other Gyroudus, which seems to have some sort of mutation. It asks the other Gyroudus to try attack the Lachamasauron, which is now attacking it and seems to be faster. Will this be the death of the Gyroudus? It turns around and fight, but then the Lachamasauron seems to have left. It decides to rest. It just got really low in health. But then it sees that remora behind it. It isn't easy now. But then it sees another creature behind it. This is really dangerous for the Gyroudus. The Gyroudus has his bleed gone. Now it's time to run. This seems very uncomfortable for the Gyroudus. Decides to regenerate health at this cliff. Hopefully it'll be safe. Since it has now got its strength back, it decides to go back to the surface, above the ground. It sees a Diachrine and a Lamasodon. Since its past experience wasn't very great, it decides to be on alert. It then sees its friends. It decides to try and make a pact with them. I mean, that's the reasonable thing to do. The Gyroudus seems to have agreed, so it decides to tell them to follow. They seem to not be listening. He says it again. This time they seem to listen. The Gyroudus is low on hunger since it has not eaten for a long time. It decides to try to play on this. I don't know what its name is. But then it sees a tornado. It then decides to run. This was very deadly. Although Gyroudus were likely of standing a tornado, they weren't very good at escaping them. And although they could survive a tornado, they could still be very injured. The Gyroudus then decides to drink. The Gyroudus seemed to be planning on making a pack. He decides to make it. Well, he already has. The Gyroudus set out again. Gyroudus seemed to travel a lot. The Gyroudus sees a plains up ahead, covered in snow. He wonders what's up ahead. Maybe they could feast on a tier 5 creature like a Kendall or Gramos. Although since this Gyroudus got beat up by that Lamasodon, it might be hard to kill something like a Gramos. The Gyroudus turns around, sees something horrifying. A tornado stumbling near. But then it just suddenly disappears. That was strange. The Gyroudus decides to worry about it later and goes and runs over to that cave. The Gyroudus could seek shelter in this cave, which would be good. The Gyroudus checks to see if everyone's here, and doesn't seem to be. But then the Gyroudus that seems to have some weird mutation where it glows comes. The Gyroudus decides to rest in the cave, since it is winter and it is very cold. Then if he gets too cold, he'll get hypothermia, and that will be just really bad. The strange Gyroudus seems to be sticking around. The Gyroudus wonders. I wonder why that thing glows. If he decides to not worry about it, it doesn't matter. He sees another youngling, but he thinks it's the one from before. But then he sees a pony and a Lemursaurus. He decides to get revenge. Well, not revenge on the pony, but decides to eat it just because why not? He notices that this creature seems to be sort of like immortal. He doesn't know how though. He decides to change enemy and goes for the Lemursaurus, which doesn't attack, but he dodges this attack, but still takes damage for some reason. But then the Lamakasauron seems to have died of bleed. He decides to eat the meat. He decides to also kill that pony monstrum and then goes for the shuriken. But then he sees that he's being attacked by a creature he seems to have never seen before. Must be rare. This Gyroudus has experienced problems like this before and knows the best option is water. The flies can't get you at all in the water. He retreats into the water and the Kurku seems to not be bothering him. He tells his pack mates. The one with the glowing back seems to not listen. I wonder why. Does it have a better option, like hiding in a cave? He decides to ignore it because of the glowing creature seems to not be attacked, which is strange. He decides to return to the surface, since the Kurku seems to have been gone. But then he sees it again. Hopefully this time it won't attack him. Besides, he could just stay near the water in case. But then he notices that his packmates start to be attacked. He sees it landing and tries to attack it, but accidentally attacks his packmate instead. He then retreats and rests since he has no stamina, and he might drown in the water if he has no stamina, which is very bad. He decides to do something quite clever and tries to sneak up on him while the Kurku is not noticing. But then the Kurku gets away with it. He's not sure if it noticed or not, but that doesn't matter right now. The Kurku seems to be jumping about like a crazy thing. Then again, everything is kind of crazy in here. He notices that he cannot fit in this cave and tries to escape, but then he notices something very bad. He seems to be stuck. He tries to get out of it by going down and up, but he is stuck. He tries to keep doing stuff, but he can't get free. He's not sure why he is stuck, but he notices that his fin seems to be stuck inside the ground. Why though? He must have somehow jammed it in somehow, but that's not very possible. His fins are his fins aren't that hard to stab into this material. He is extremely confused, and he keeps trying, but it's no use. He's stuck here. He keeps trying to get free, but he can't. Just simply can't. He cries for rescue. But he gets out of stamina. Will this be the death of the Gyroudus? No, he can't give up. He tries to do something to get out, but he still can't. He tries to push. He just tries, but he can't. He keeps trying, but he can't. He then realises that he's stuck here, and he decides to just wait until something happens. Anyway, so that was the end of the documentary, guys. Sorry if you didn't really like it. It's my first documentary, so I'd have like zero experience. And at the beginning, I got to admit I didn't really know what I was doing. So anyway, bye, have an awesome day guys. Let's wait for 20 minutes because 20 minutes is cool.